I always believe in making what I like to eat and what my family likes to eat.
Customers namin, ilang generations na eh.
We don't advertise.
The cakes, the desserts bring back a memory.
It was made with, with care and love.
What's a celebration without cakes? And how did they become such an integral part of our food culture? The Philippines, due to its climate conditions, doesn't produce wheat. This prompted Filipino food scientist and war hero Maria Ilagan Orosa to utilize native ingredients like cassava, bananas, and even rice bran to make flour. She also innovated the palayok oven, but that's a story for another day. It's said that the Spanish introduced baking with wheat, and since then, it's become a much-loved tradition. Today, we're excited to bring you 3 of the best and most iconic cakes in Metro Manila. For our first stop, we went to Makati to meet Dimpy and Issa Camara, the mother and daughter pair behind the pioneering frozen brazo and the crowd favorite classic chocolate cake of Dimpy's Kitchen.
Hi, I'm Dimpy Camara, the home baker behind Dimpy's. Actually, my background is in finance. Both my husband and I are corporate people. We left for the States to take our masters in business. The baking really is a hobby. It's always been a hobby because I have kids and I always bake for them. And every time I go to a potluck, I bring one for cakes. One Christmas, 2 of my friends approached me. I wasn't selling any cake at that time, and they said, "Can you make me 2 dozen of your cakes?" Then my husband heard this, and he said, "Do you want to go this route?" And I said, I'm not sure, because that time I was really busy. We don't advertise. We never advertise. People started calling, and then started ordering, and ordering, and ordering. I guess through word of mouth. It's now, how many years? 20 plus years since I started that. And here we are. I guess because the frozen brazo, it was a new cake. We were the first ones that made that cake. So when it came out, everybody wanted to try it. I have a sister-in-law that's also a foodie. And one day she said to me, I tried this dessert. Can you try to make it for me? Let's try to make it because your brazo is very good. So I said, okay. What does it have? She said it was very cold. It was, this and that. So here I am. I make one. So I say, did you like it? She said, oh my God. She said, it's better than that thing I tried that I was telling you about. And she said everyone in the party wanted to order it. And that's how it started. I always believe in good ingredients to make a good product. In fact, we have a farm, my husband and I, and our farm is purely organic. So a lot of the things we use in our cakes are from a farm. I always believe in making what I like to eat and what my family likes to eat. In our family, we like moist cakes. So the chocolate cake, if you notice, is extra moist. We like it that way, and it keeps that way for a few days. A lot of the other products are starting to get popular. The Mocha Crunch is actually a favorite of 2 of my children, 2 out of the 4. It's a very light chiffon cake with a mocha buttercream frosting, and it comes with a crunch. And they love that, because they say it mixes all textures together.
Initially, Dimpy ran the show, with her daughters happily cheering her on from the sidelines, until her youngest daughter, Issa, saw potential in the business and wanted to take on a more active role.
Issa and I have a very similar background. She's also a finance person. In fact, we both got our MBAs from the same university abroad. She came from here, was hired for Singapore. From Singapore, she was hired in Norway.
I realized that the Dimpy brand has a lot of potential. And I strongly believe that ever since.
She called me. She said, "Mom, I want to come home." I said, "Why? Don't come home. Sayang, you're working." She said, "Mom, you and Dad are my idols. Who pa will I learn from? And you're not young anymore. So I really want to come home. Please don't stop me."
And that's why I decided to join. I also believe that this is actually the legacy that she's leaving behind. And it's something that our whole family really holds close to our hearts. They say there are 5 love languages, and my mom's is actually food. She would always, even until today actually, for our birthdays, she prepares dinner for all of us. And she's always baked us cakes during special occasions and our birthdays, and those were always special memories. So to us, the cakes are nostalgic and representative of what we loved growing up. What I want to do, hopefully for the brand, is to continue growing it, but we also do believe in organic and sustainable growth. We're pretty particular about all the ingredients that we use because we only want the customers to get the best quality. All our ingredients are sourced from a particular supplier.
With their signature cakes enjoying a loyal customer base, Dimpy and Issa admit that their grind during the holiday season can get pretty overwhelming, especially since they still bake the cakes at home.
I guess one word that describes it is it's crazy. Because this is one of the last days you're going to see this like this. Because during Christmas, we set it up with all tables. And it's full of cakes, you know. And Issa mans the kitchen sometimes, and I'm here. Or we switch. One of us is in production, one is on the phone, and we're running around like crazy, you know, trying to fill the orders.
And we wake up at 3 in the morning every day.
At 3 in the morning.
And we probably are able to go to bed at maybe 10 or 11 in the evening.
At night. So we hardly get any sleep. But it's crazy during the Christmas season. I'm happy actually that she's with me because she has new ideas. The things Issa brings to the business are the modernization and that very forward thinking. I never even thought of having online ordering, a website, all these things, you know, but she says that it makes it much easier for the customers to do.
For her, like her attention to detail and the level of perfection that she...
Oh, monster mom.
No, I mean, from the product, in a good way.
Yeah.
The products should always be perfect.
We both really believe if it's not right, don't serve it.
There's another bake shop in Quezon City that has become an institution when it comes to caramel cakes. We're talking about Estrel's, which has been in the business for 78 years. We spoke with Joy Navarro, one of the owners of Estrel's. Joy is one of the nieces of Estrella Ilagan, the baker whose caramel cake recipe laid the foundation for Estrel's back in 1946. Today, Joy runs the business with her 2 sisters, Gina and Mia.
My aunt, Tita Estrella Ilagan, she started the business in 1946. Well, I think it was started not as a formal business. It was a backyard kitchen. She formulated the caramel herself, but from what I heard, yung chiffon, maybe with a few, you know, adjustments here and there, she copied a recipe from a cake box of a certain cake brand of flour. It used to be called Estrellas. So it used to be in Recto Avenue. And so there was a kitchen there. So we were in elementary school then. So our Tita Estrella would ask us to do things for the kitchen. She would ask us to do trimmings for a wedding cake. So back then, kasi yung mga flowers for wedding cakes, these were made of sugar flowers. And then we would wind them together and then tie them in small bunches. I remember we will not complain kasi kuminsan sakit-sakit na ganito namin, no. Her mantra was, I don't like to bake anything in commercial quantity because if you do that, you're going to lose the quality. Before I joined Estrel, I was working in a bank, in a credit card company of a bank. But si Gina, she had been with, she started with Estrel earlier than I did. Sometime 2000, I left the bank and I decided to join Estrel's full time. We didn't have a small shop before here in Estrel. We just had a kitchen. So as I said, customers will ring the bell sa gate and then we'll come out and then bring the cake. And then Gina said, Joy, we can put up a small shop. It's becoming inconvenient for the customer, especially if it is raining. So if we have a small shop, they can just go inside and then we bring the cake in that small shop. Back then, I was a little bit resistant. Sabi ko sa kanya, baka we might not be able to sell. We will invest for the shop and then we might. No, Gina, she was very confident. No, I'm sure we'll do it. So first we had the shop. We would only bake cakes that were ordered, and then syempre customers started passing by, and then they would see our shop, and then they'll come up. So in the 2000s, that's how we started building the customer base. But basically, the customers that we have now, if you'll ask them how they became customers of Estrel's, probably they'll answer, I got a gift. First, they are recipients and then they become customers. So, as I said, we don't really advertise. Customers namin, ilang generations na eh. I think they're already, some maybe, fourth generation na yung ibang customers namin eh. I remember when I was watching our shop, a lady came down. Sabi niya, is this the same Estrel's of Estrellas in Azcárraga? Recto used to be called Azcárraga. Sabi ko, yes. You know that you made my 18th birthday cake in 19 so and so. So they were just happy to see us na we have relocated here in Quezon City. We're very selective then with our suppliers eh. So, like for example, yung flour namin, flour, sugar, we generally maintain the same suppliers kasi based on experience, we know that they deliver. Although we have 3 selections in our frosting, butter, marshmallow, and caramel, majority really order caramel. So, our cake is not really like yung dadaan ka sa mall, or you buy this cake, Our cake is more like you want it to be a part of an important family event. Well, for one, our cake is not very sweet. Okay? Because I think if your cake is very sweet, the tendency is for you to, it's so sweet, then probably you will not order anymore. There are many bake shops now that sort of, try to copy, and we cannot help them, if they try to make their own caramel. But there's I can see the difference. No? With just one look, I know it's not our caramel. They try to copy our designs. We're not flattered, okay? Because our designs are copyrighted eh. No, we grew up nandiyan na yung mga rose na yan, yung mga cream roses na yan, buttercream roses. So, it's made by hand. Every petal of the rose is piped out. If Estrel is successful, we owe it also to our employees, di ba? Train them well. When they joined Estrel, they didn't know anything. Most of them start as dishwashers eh. And many of them have stayed with us for many, many years already. Sometimes they recommend their relative to work with Estrel. That means they're happy with working for and with Estrels. Many people are asking us to put up branches. But as I said, we don't want several kitchens. We only want one kitchen. If you have several kitchens, it's hard to maintain quality. And since our cake is very fragile, di ba? So you order now, we bake it today, then you pick it up. It was made with with care and love. That's what we tell our employees, no. It's not just meeting the expectation, but you make the customer happy, di ba, with a cake.
After savoring the story behind the delightful caramel cake, let's enjoy a huge, satisfying bite of the iconic mango tort from Cuerva Bakeshop, a cake business started by a home baker named Paz Unson Reyes Cuerva in the early 50s.
My grandmother started this business back in the 1960s. My grandmother was an avid baker, sewer. She was very much a homemaker. So she had majored in home ec at UST, where she met my grandfather. So when my grandfather was working for San Miguel, they had American friends who would invite them to attend bingo. One time, she actually won a prize, a big prize at the time, was a Sunbeam mixer. And so that was kind of her, graduating from just home baking, hand mixing things, to using an actual mixer. At the time, that was such a big deal to have a mixer. Started baking for friends and family, and people started ordering. In fact, she had been featured in women's magazine for her makapuno roll, and then she had her ensemadas featured in the newspaper, and also a mango cake. It wasn't the mango tort yet, so it was something else. And then my grandfather had a farm. His family had a farm in Bulacan, and they had an overabundance of mangoes. So they were shipped to San Lorenzo Village, to my grandparents' house, and my grandmother had to figure out what to do with it. So one of the products she came up with was the mango tort. Ever since I was little, I was the one who would be the most interested in cooking with her. Not just baking, even cooking. And I remember standing on a step stool around the kitchen island and just assisting her in any way that she would let me. She was the very hands-on mother and grandmother. When I was in high school, she started even hiring me. So after school, I would go to her house and help her decorate cakes, because at that point, her hands were already shaking. So she needed a steady hand to finish certain things. That continued on until I decided, after finishing college and working in the hotel and restaurant world, that I wanted to go get my culinary degree. My abuelita Paz, even in her 70s, she would still be working in the kitchen till late at night. She would be working later than the staff. Fortunately, the first year of my culinary school, my grandmother passed away. When she passed, it was actually continued by my grandfather, who was still alive, because we still had our bakers in place. I want to give credit to our staff. Many have been with us for decades. They're really part of our family. So with their help and, just having systems in place, the business was able to continue. But again, that was still at the time just in the home, right? We didn't move out to a retail space till 2005. So in 2005, we moved out of the family home and opened this retail space. So we've been here for 18 years. When I came and took over running the business, we consolidated the baking into one space. So having a commissary helps us have more quality control because everything is coming out of one place. All the deliveries usually go there. Our suppliers, only have to deliver in one place, etc. And so we can put out a product that is consistent whether you buy it in any of our 4 retail stores.
Besides their mango tart, Cuervas is also sought after for their honey cake, an award-winning multi-generational favorite of loyal customers.
At the time in the 60s, our bestseller was actually the honey cake. So the honey cake recipe was inspired by a trip to Europe. The original cake was from the Russian region. The honey cake is layers of chiffon and filled with buttercream and then sprinkled with honey praline. And that's also what's out the outside. There are actually no nuts in the cake. It has a very light texture and it's not too sweet. So that's the part of the distinct flavor profile of Cuerva Bakeshop cakes is our desserts are not too sweet. So you can eat more. You can eat more of it because it's not that sweet. Because it's really a multi-generational cake. If our customers come in, our loyal customers, they'll tell us stories about how they remember going to their lola's house and eating it. And then it became their favorite and now they're serving it to their children or grandchildren. So it's really quite heartwarming. The mango tart is actually a nut meringue crust, and then it's covered with whipped cream and then a house-made mango sauce and topped with fresh mango balls. So I think the great thing about the mango tart is it really features our country's #1 fruit, which is world-renowned for being very, very sweet. Our cakes are not necessarily on the most inexpensive side of the desserts available, but people feel like the quality is worth spending on. And because the flavor hasn't changed, we haven't changed the recipes. We're still using my abuelita's recipes until now. So, it's the same as you would have tasted it when you were a child. I think the same with listening to a good song. The cakes, the desserts bring back a memory, and it's usually a happy memory. It's usually a memory of people gathering, family gathering, or friends.